Hello everyone, my name is Kyle Hovis, and today I will be summarizing and analyzing the final essay written in Reflections on the 75th Anniversary of the Student Personnel Point of View. The essay is titled A View into the Next 75 Years, and it was written by Barbara Jacoby of University of Maryland and Mimi Benjamin, who at the time was with Cornell University but is now a professor in the Student Affairs and Higher Education program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I was very excited to read this article because I was able to meet and be interviewed by Dr. Benjamin in the spring for IUP's graduate program, so it felt special to be able to read a piece of her work. You are probably able to gather this from many other past posts, but the Student Personnel Point of View is a report of the conference that took place in 1937 that was sponsored by the American Council of Education, and specifically the Committee on Problems and Plans in Education. The report focuses on the creation and maintenance of the student personnel role in higher education, as well as the philosophy brought forth on how student personnel professionals are to better help the whole student succeed. The document also focused on the many functions completed by the student personnel, the types of coordination that must take place in the field, and what future development looked like for higher education in 1937. The essay written by Jacoby and Benjamin was written in 2012. A view into the next 75 years begins with stating that there is much trouble present when trying to predict what will happen throughout the next 75 years. This is no easy feat due to the amount of unpredictability that occurs in this world. 75 years ago, the conference goers who drafted the Student Personnel Point of View could not have predicted school shootings that took place, 9/11 and the war on terrorism, the ongoing economic crisis, and much more. However, by focusing on current trends that seem to continue evolving and adapting to the new student bodies of higher education, the authors looked towards the future with some worry but mainly excitement. In this podcast, I hope to be able to focus on some of the main areas that the authors focus on and relate them to what we have read and talked about so far in our intro class. So to begin, I'd like to talk about the role of higher education and how it was the first focus taken by Jacoby and Benjamin. The authors state that higher education's purpose has played a delicate balance between providing purpose to the public, but also private gaining for each institution. The student personnel point of view focuses pretty specifically on the holistic student and how one can be benefited as a whole in higher education. A very interesting point the authors make that has been talked about in our intro class is what the current value of a degree is and what the value of a degree will be in the future. Today, many different programs require master's or doctoral degrees to supplement the bachelor's degree, which is the most attained degree in higher education. The relationship between the degree obtained and the potential for finding future employment and money is consistently talked about in the future and is something that should be focused on by student personnel. In addition, STEM degrees, or degrees originating in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, has increased in demands by the world's employers, which has caused higher education in America to allocate more funding in these types of programs. Lastly, because the baby boomer generation has completely funneled through the education system, higher education has deemed service skills very important, thus pushing student personnel workers to focus on teaching those important life skills that we all try and teach. Those such as active listening, engaging diverse perspectives, and more. The student personnel point of view is very helpful in reminding all student personnel professionals that our philosophy is based around developing the entire student and helping each one engage and participate in learning and engage to better grow into an adult. Even though there are many goals set for higher education, the mission should not be strayed away from this. Jacoby and Benjamin also place a large focus on the affordability of higher education in the next 75 years. Even though both the essay and the student personnel point of view were written during a time of economic crisis, the authors agree that the economy and the cost of higher education will remain a significant concern in the future. For most of higher education institutions throughout the United States, federal or state funding is staying the same or decreasing year to year, thus forcing institutions to make tough financial decisions. Unfortunately, because of this, the cost of tuition, room and board, and other fees have slowly been increasing, thus making college much more expensive than the years past. The authors believe that until the government is able to find reform for the higher education financial system, college will continue to cost more and more money, making it harder for the lower or middle class to be able to attend. In addition to this, another financial conversation happening is whether or not a higher education will even be worth attaining in the future. In Aram and Raska's article titled Academically Adrift Limited Learning in College Campuses, research shows that students are not seeing significant improvements in skills such as reasoning or writing or critical thinking. This raises the question of whether or not the college experience painted by the student personnel point of view will be able to be sustained with financial troubles ahead. In my opinion from this reading, this aspect of higher education will be the darkest part of the future for our field, because unless we find alternative ways for institutions to receive funds, colleges may soon be excessively unaffordable, and some students would argue that this is already happening today. The next focus Jacoby and Benjamin took was on student development and learning. It is obvious to see in higher education it is obvious to see that higher education does not look the way it did in 1937, and it definitely will not look the same as it did in 2012 in the next 75 years. There is so much more that happens in the classroom experience today than I bet the Committee on Problems and Plans could have imagined. Today, we have seen the implementation of online learning, technological advances in the classroom, such as ones we see in our intro class, and the creation of community colleges, and many more. The authors believe it is our job as student personnel workers to help shape the future of innovation when it comes to student development and learning. They urge us to continue researching the different ways we can better improve our higher education system to foster student learning and engagement. The authors believe that in terms of learning, the main focus for the future should be on holding the university, faculty, and staff accountable for making sure that our students are learning. Due to the financial burdens many of our students have, it is our job to make sure that students are getting their money's worth out of their college education. In addition, the authors discuss how the role of parents and friends need to continue playing a positive role in the lives of students. With this happening, we will be able to encourage our students to continue on in their education until they leave with a degree, hopefully in 4 years or less. Lastly, the author suggested that social networking should be utilized in the future to help students maintain healthy support groups, especially through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the other social networking sites that will soon be popular. The last area of focus was on the internationalization of higher education in the future. In this focus, we see much more students wanting to study abroad in other countries than we did in the past, as well as more international students studying in the States, more U.S. institutions being created on different continents in other countries, and more. Something interesting I took away from this section was the idea of collabtition, or the combining of collaboration and competition. Even though the U.S. works to collaborate with other countries to create the best higher education experience for our students, we are still in competition with them and need to make sure that we are retaining our student body, thus allowing us to make the money needed to run effectively. The future for internationalization is a bright one because of the amount of opportunities the system has to create international awareness, an appreciation of diversity, and strong relationships rooted in collaboration, just like the student personnel point of view talked about. To conclude this essay, the author states that even though higher education does not look like it did in 1937 on face value, the philosophy of our field remains the same. We are here to engage students in learning, develop the whole student, and meet the needs of each and every individual. We are challenged as student affairs professionals to never forget the true reason of why we do what we do in our profession, and we are encouraged to maintain and motivate our students to contribute to the betterment of society. I leave you with a discussion question today, and that is, what do you think the future of higher education will look like in the next 75 years, specifically in the student affairs profession? What are you particularly excited about, and what are you nervous about? I hope to get some responses and start a great discussion, and otherwise, take care, everyone, and I will see you in class on Monday.